So with Saints Row, they handed you an idea and you executed it.
Yeah.
But what you do now is you create ideas and you execute them.
Yeah.
So is there a difference between the type of person that creates ideas and the type of person that executes them? And if they're contained in one person or two people, those qualities, what are the qualities of a designer that creates ideas versus the quality of a designer that can execute the ideas? And let's say like the quality of a designer that embodies both. Like, so the creation of the ideas versus execution of the ideas. What's the skill set?
Wow. I mean, that's a good question. I think, man, coming up with ideas is very easy. Whether or not they sell or not is entirely different part of the equation. But just throwing out game ideas, I mean, anybody can do it. And executing is when you have to like literally, in a sense, herd cats and come up with the fun, the core loop of the game, what's fun about it, and iterate. I'm a strong believer in iteration. I'm a strong believer in let's getting something in, let's play it, and then let's look at where the strength, where's the fun, and continually to massage that. And I think a lot of designers are great at coming up with the idea, but they're terrible at the knee deep in development of like constantly drilling. Is this fun? What's good about it? What's not so good about it? And being able to separate those things. And you don't always get it right, even when you ship, but you got to try your hardest. And execution is probably the hardest part of the industry of game design, and that is getting, especially if you have a team. If you're solo, it's hard for sure, but having a team all buy in, and you're the champion. You're the champion of the game. You're its chief seller. You're selling the idea. You're selling the mechanics. You're selling everything about it, and you got to get your team to buy into the game. If they don't buy into it, then they don't feel invested. They feel like they're just being told what to do, and it becomes a job for them. And great games are not about like creating truly great products. It's not about just putting in the 9 to 5 and being done with it. You need to. There's passion involved, and it's hard because selling that to I got stories on Saints Row where there was art people that quit towards the end of the project, and they quit because they said that the lead designer would come around their office with GTA on PlayStation Portable and would say, well, our vehicles should behave like this. And it's true. I did. I would have like GTA's vehicles. I had felt they had a sort of way about them, and instead of me just basically describing in long paragraphs of what I think it should feel like, I brought along a game that I felt that did a pretty good job, and I said, let's kind of shoot for this, and at least let's get to this point, and then we can look at where we can go. And I think that the idea designer, purely identity, doesn't do that. They tend to just say, okay, let's do this, and then they can't point out examples, or they can point out examples, but then they don't follow through. Whereas an execution designer actually follows through and is there from the beginning to the end and pushes it through and really sells the game to the team, but also to a press and marketing, and they're the champion of the game. They're the face and the voice.
But also the execution involves creation, right? Because even if you get directives from, like, let's say a creative director, just the basic points of what the game's supposed to be, you still have to come up with creative solutions to execute those bullet points, right? I mean, you have to come up with ideas while you're executing within the framework of the idea man, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So it's like almost like the executor kind of embodies both.
The crazy thing is this is how long I've been, well, not long, but this is how far I've been away from like the AAA studio. There was no creative directors at Volition. There was no creative director. There was no executive producer at THQ. For all intents and purposes, I was the creative director, design director, and all rolled into one. And so, ultimately the game rested on me. And I remember, so one of the things that I pushed for in Saints Row was a story. So there was a sort of a studio manager at the company, and he would push his crazy ass design ideas on us. And he came to us pretty early in the project. It was like, okay, what this game is, it should not have a story. It should just basically be a collection of shit that you do in the city, and then at some point you could take the city over. No rhyme or reason, but no story, because story is expensive to do. You got to do cutscenes, you got to do voiceovers, you got to, it's a production, and it just adds to the budget of the game. Really, what should be, it should be about player agency, player choice, and And I said, well, you really need a reason for doing these things, and a story gets you invested in the characters, and it makes you want to progress in the game and to see it through. And frankly, the type of game that we're creating, there's expectations to have a story. Like it or not, we're going to be compared to GTA. And if you don't have a story, as some other open world games like Crackdown, and Crackdown 2, didn't have a story, and I think it suffered from it. And I said, you need to have story, you need to have characters. And they said, okay. And I sold it to him on it and explained why we needed it. He didn't agree with me, but because of my role, he deferred to me. But he said to me, he said, your ass is on the line. If this game comes out and it's terrible, or the story's not good, or it flops, and you're fired. You're gonna be fired. And I said, okay, put it on me. Fire me then, if it sucks. And it came out and everybody loved it. Everybody loved the story. People. We would get emails about people crying because they didn't know if their character died at the end or not. We left it on a cliffhanger. They would be very upset at us, and we're like, yeah, we did our job. If you're that passionate about where you're like emailing us and like saying, how dare you do this, and yeah, you brought out something in them.